Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. So we're going to go through some of the stuff that we did the last time, but in a little bit more detail, things that are really important in Java. So the last time we had a look just at the import the scanner object, and here we have the public class hello world, which is still in the same class. So it's really important to know that this opens your class. This is the parentheses or open left curly bracket and close left curly bracket. So with every class, there's always an open and closing. So like learning a new language, you always have to open and close something. It's the same as a full stop, let's say, in another language. So you have to end the sentence. So for this, it's an open and closing curly bracket. For the next part, it says public, which we'll get to in a while. There's public, private, and protected. These are keywords in Java, but we'll get to that later. For the moment, we're just going to concentrate on building this as our first program. Main shows that you're opening up a method, which is here, which is a rounded bracket, open bracket, and then you also have a rounded close bracket. So with every open bracket, you always have a closed bracket, whether it's a curly bracket or a round bracket. And then we had a little chat the last time about system.out being a predefined standard library within Java. So this would be the standard output stream that's there, this system.out.println being new line. And then you've got the hello world, and I've got a space in between, and then system.out.println here as well. So with some of the stuff, these are called string. It's called string literal. So there's certain kind of language that is associated with learning programming. So with some of the stuff, there's primitive types, there's decision-making blocks, there's classes, objects, and all these different things that are associated with programming as well, that make it really like learning a language. You need to know some of the definitions of these things. So with this, you have main, which is always going to have, there's always going to be something called within main to start your program. That's always going to be the way. So there's the standard output object, which is system.out.println. And then you also have indentations within your code, which is also really important. So within each of the coding that I mentioned the last time, that there's two comments that I have here, and then I put a space here because I'm using something else, and I have a space here as well. And then I run, generally speaking, I run like per line. A lot of the time that if I change something big or whatever, that I like, as you go along, you can run more and more, but when you're starting out, certainly you run per line and then see what the line actually does, and you can put comments in it, or you can put logs in it and things like that. So one of the first things that you do with debugging is put in logs to show it up in the console. But we're going to just go into a little bit more detail when it comes to this actual program. So you always have these parentheses, which is in American English, parentheses or a left curly bracket and right curly bracket. So you can see here within Eclipse, it also highlights the opening and closing here. It also opens the opening and closing here. So with this, you can see that there's indentations when it comes to different levels, let's call them levels, when it comes to this. So class is the upper level, and then method is the level below. So one trick that you can always remember is class.method, open bracket, close bracket, and that's how you access a method within a class. So if you have multiple classes within a program, so this is one class that we have at the moment, that's called hello world. If we open up another class, you can put multiple classes within the same file as well, within the same Java file, and call that class, and then something that's doing something within that method. So for instance, if you have classes that are like, they can be described as like a blueprint within your program. So it's something that you can take something from something else. So we are creating our own classes, but within Java, there's also standard libraries that you can take from. So for instance, if you were to create a car object and it was a different type of car, but cars all drive, they all have gears, they all have different things. So within that, you can also take from standard things. Let's say you already have, you're working in car manufacturers and they already have a program with this, so you can take from the parent class and then use some of their methods and adapt them or adjust them based on different things when you go. So for instance, the car color is different, or it has 6 gears instead of 5 gears, or things like that. So you can adapt it and adjust it, and that's called inheritance. But we'll get to that way later. For the moment, we're just going through some of the important stuff here. So with reading code, I like to think of it as you're reading the other way, because you're assigning it to the assigned definition on the left. So if you go here, it says next int.input, and you're putting it into the number 1. So for instance, I have something here that I've used. So this is, let's say, pretend this is like your memory, and you fill this up with like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that's just your integers that go in here. So with each of the integers, there's a certain amount of memory that is used within this. So it's full now with the amount of numbers that I'm after putting into it. So the amount of digits, so that would be your integer. So let's say, for instance, then you have a double. So a double is a number with a decimal. So you'd say 10.0. And you fill it up with a number at the end as well. So there's a certain limit that you can store within each of these different types. So for instance, that's integer, then you have double. So we're going to see what double looks like here. If I just go down, here you have double, and that's the keyword is called double. So let's say number 2. Dub, let's say, equals, and now the input is going to be different. So let's say if I put in next, and you can see here that it will show up next double, float, byte, and there's different types. So if I have double, it will scan the next double integer that's put in. So and these are to do also with tokens, which we'll come back to in a while. But for the moment, we're going to look at next double. And let's see if we can put it here. And for double, we have to use a different definition here. So with each of these, there are different types. So D is always integer, then you have double, and then there's also string. There's also different types. So for instance, this is always going to be integer. For double, it's another one. So you can use %f here, and then that's kind of like your placeholder of where you're going to put the number 2 double here, and then I'm going to have another %n here. So if I put in here enter first here, let's say I'm going to say enter first double, and then see about running it. So let's say if I put in 2 here, and then I put in 2.0, then I get what the user input to, and then a new line, because I'm after saying new line here. So if I remove that new line here and then run it again, enter first, let's say 3.0, and that's where you can see that there's multiple zeros after the 3.0. Now, %f is for a floating point, and %d actually means decimal numbers. So we'll come to that in a while, but you can also do calculations within this, and you can do, let's say, things like if statements. So with there's an order of preference when it comes to the different calculations within Java. So within all mathematics, really. So you have, we learned in school BIMDAS, so it's brackets, indices, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. So that's the order of the calculations that are going to be done within the line. So if I have a look here, if I want to output something that's different when it comes to it, so let's say for instance, if I wanted, and they have to be the same type when you're calculating it. So if we have multiple numbers, so if we put in another number after this, let's say another integer, let's take another integer here, next number 3 int, and I'm going to put it here, number 3 int, we'll rename number 3 int, so let's number 3 int 1. So with some of the stuff you can't end some of the things, so this has to be int here, or should I say, sorry, number 3 int, number 2 double, but this is number 3 int here, and we're just declaring a variable here called number 3 int. We're taking the next integer from the input, but we're going to put in what's called a decision making block. So there's equality and relational operators that are used, and if you use the BIMDAS as the acronym, so if you use that to do the calculation, so for instance, if I have if, and then I'm going to put in number 1. Now the naming conventions within this is really important. I'm after not doing very good in terms of the naming conventions, but this is just an example. So for instance as well, a lot of people like doing if statements, and that within, so they like putting the curly bracket here. Others prefer not to do it. Eclipse will automatically do a closing bracket for you. So others prefer to put a space after this and put it onto the next line. It's really a matter of preference when it comes to this. There's also books that show this is better, and then the indentation automatically starts here, so it's easier to read. There's a whole thing with programming readability that's really important as well when you get to it. So system.out. Let's say print ln, and we're going to open the bracket and say I want the percentage D to come up. Now if you don't put in the quotation marks, this is what happens. So it's really important to put in the quotation marks when you're putting it out, because it's just reading it directly from this. So let's say equals. So equality within programming is equals when you're assigning something. So from the last time we started talking about D.A.U, that's declare, assign, and use. So I have declared number 3 int here, which I'm just using int at the end of number 3 to show you that it's an integer, that it's an integer type, so it's easier to read. And then we're taking the next input from the next integer from the input and assigning it into number 3 int, and we're going to show it up here. So at the moment we've got 2 things here, and then I'm going to put in another percentage D, and there is just a really simple placeholders they're called, and then this is the new line. So we're just going to put in number 1, which is here. I'm taking from a number 3 int, number 3 int, and you always end your statement with a semicolon. So if we have another read of this, there's an error here. We're going to say print f here, and then we're going to run it. And if I put in my integer here and put in a double here and then put another, there's no enter here, so we've got a problem here because I didn't say please enter a new thing here. So we have to put in, we have to stop it and put in another here. And this will just be for the next integer. So second integer. And now if I press play again and run it again, so I've got 2, 3.0, and then 2 again, and then it shows up 2 equals 2. So you can put in another description here. Number 1 is equal to number 3. Let's say, or you can put in something else as well. Okay, thank you very much for joining, and I'll put up another video in the next while. Please subscribe to my channel, and we'll get started on more detailed stuff soon.